mobility. In this video, we're going to cover the most effective exercises for the hips and the ankles. If you follow the squat routine that I show, I'm confident that you'll enjoy lasting improvements and finally fix your squat mobility. Hey everyone, Daniel Vadnal here for Fitness FAQs. The majority of the drills in today's video are going to involve some hard work. We're going to use the most optimal exercises to quickly improve the squat. The thing is, if we want to have a comfortable squat, we must strengthen the muscles surrounding the hip and the ankle. Let's start by addressing the hip component of the squat. Despite common thinking, static stretching of the hip isn't the best use of your time for a comfortable deep squat. Instead of stretching, I invite you to try stability and strengthening exercises. To start with, strengthening the hip flexors is a really good place to invest your time and your effort. In order to squat down to at least 90 degrees, we need to have really strong hip flexors. When doing hip flexor strengthening exercises, aim to purely lift the knee up and down in a straight path. If you have weakness in the hip flexors, your knee is going to want to drift off sideways. In the standing variation, keep the back completely straight and only lift the knee. I want you to really try and get that knee as high as you can without flexing your lower back. If you have access to a light resistance band, the hip flexor march can also be done on the floor. Keep the low back flat against the ground and drive the knee towards the chest. Remember to avoid the knee floating off to the side. Make sure that you're pulling the knee towards the same sided nipple. You should feel the quad and the hip flexors near your lower stomach working really hard to lift that knee. Are you someone that has issues with butt wink or the lower back flexing when you squat? Strengthening the hip flexors with the hip flexor march is really going to help minimize your butt wink. Now that we've woken up the hip flexors, our glutes can now be used to their full potential. For complete comfort when squatting up and down, let's do a set of glute bridges. We're going to be using single leg for this one because it's the best for reducing any imbalances that you may have side to side. I want you to hug one knee to the chest and then drive through the heel, extending the hip. Instead of arching the back to complete the bridge, push the pelvis towards the ceiling and really connect with the glute contraction. Make sure that you don't rush this one. Control the range of motion with a big squeeze at the top for a perfect rep. For those of you with pinchy, tight, and uncomfortable hips, the side plank is an absolute game changer. This core stability exercise will increase your hip internal rotation without even stretching. By doing a set of side planks, the muscles on the outside of your hip are going to be activated. This is going to help to stabilize your spine. Improved spine stability is going to allow your hips to move more freely, reducing the feeling of tightness at the front of your hips. As I said earlier, constantly stretching is not the answer for most people. Give core stability with the side plank a go and just see how you feel. I'm confident that most of you are going to feel much more comfortable in the squat after a simple set of side planks. After some spine stability with the plank, you're now in the perfect position to rotate the hips. Most people don't spend enough time going into hip internal rotation. Rotating the thigh inwards is an important function for having a comfortable squat and not feeling jacked up in the hip joint. The first drill we're going to be doing on the floor in a non-weight bearing position to gently encourage some hip opening. Start off with relaxed form by allowing the pelvis to rotate as you move the thigh inwards. Next up, aim to keep the pelvis facing forward and try to strictly rotate the thigh towards the ground. Now get into a squat and work through hip internal rotation. As before, a nice warm-up is to do some reps with the pelvis moving freely side to side. Then, focus purely on hip internal rotation with the pelvis facing directly forwards. Don't forget to breathe, move deliberately, and only go as far as you feel comfortable. No rush. Now that our hips and core are nicely warmed up, let's move on to the ankle. Tightness in the calf and Achilles is really common for most people. That's why I recommend spending some time stretching the calf before we get into the strength work. There are 3 different positions you can stretch the calf to maximize the stretch. You've got foot facing forward, foot facing inward, and foot facing outward. To save time, find the position which feels the most tight and spend 1 to 1.5 minutes in the stretch. To completely address all the calf muscles, we need to do some bent leg work also. This drill is called the knee to wall. This is really useful for ankle mobility in the squat. Make sure that you keep the foot flat on the floor and drive the knee towards the wall. Aim to keep the knee over the middle to the outer aspect of the foot, driving the knee as far forwards as you can. Use the wall as a marker, and when it gets too easy to reach the wall, slide the foot back slightly and then keep pushing your comfort zone. This is probably one of the most important parts of today's video for permanently improving your ankle mobility. In order to have lasting increases in your ankle dorsiflexion, or getting that knee over your toes, we need to strengthen the front of the shins, the tibialis anterior. Get into a deep squat. If you can't, hold on to something in front of you for balance. Spend some time rocking back and forth and also side to side. This drill is amazing because we're spending time in the squat, which is what we're trying to improve, and our ankle range and stability is going to increase because we're getting stronger in the position. What we're going to do now is bring everything together and force ourselves to squat well. The overhead squat is one of my favorite full body mobility exercises because it ticks many boxes at once. With the previous drills, we've isolated areas of limitation in the hip and also the ankle. With the overhead squat, we're solidifying spine stability as well as hip and ankle mobility. I recommend dynamic reps going down as deep as you can each rep. And then on the final rep, I recommend pausing in the bottom position and then taking in deep breaths to really make sure that you're mastering the bottom of the squat. Gaining mobility is much harder than maintaining it. So if you put in the work now, you won't have to do much to maintain your mobility once you're happy. Here's a complete routine that I'd recommend you do daily to increase your squat mobility fast. I can't stress enough the importance of being present, genuinely putting in effort and breathing deep during each strengthening exercise. All I'm going to say is your squat mobility is going to improve proportional to your effort and your consistency. Head over to fitnessfaqs.tv website and I'll teach